Right now, it's storming pretty hard outside. We thought that meant practice would be put on hold. However, Carl wasn't having it. He told us we couldn't let a little rain stop us. The result of that was us having to clean mud out of our ears. Hopefully, the stains will come out of my clothes. Now, I'm in my lazy clothes, baggy jogging shorts, and an oversized shirt. You know what Carl found in this place's storage? A damn Foreman grill. It still works great, too. In fact, right now I'm eating pastrami and provolone melts that I made using it. Now, if you ask me, sourdough bread is the best for a sandwich, although I think pumpernickel comes in a close second. Some people say that tomato soup goes well with grilled cheese. I find that a cup of V8 works better. Add some sriracha to the sandwich for a little spice. Oh, and you got yourself a meal. That's pretty much all I can come up with for small talk, so I'll now continue recounting Carl and I's fucked up venture. Oh, yeah, speaking of which, apparently there are multiple Pegasus and Unicorn kingdoms, and not just the ones we saw. Now, obviously, I don't like either of them. At least, I don't like the ones we met. I could sympathize with the hybrids on some level, but they're still psychos as well. We woke up to our room's door opening. I groaned, having gotten a pretty shitty night's sleep. It's time, a hybrid member told us. With the command, it was time to execute the plan. We got dressed, then they showed us the poison to be used for the assassinations. It was a clear, almost syrupy consistency. We were told it was both odorless and tasteless. Hey, I said to the leader, is there an antidote for this stuff? Why would there need to be? In case one of us gets poisoned? That's a risk we're willing to take. Besides, making one would take too long. Now, do you have any other questions? Is this the only place with humans? No. Even some of our commoner equals and unicorns own some. It's been a practice in both cultures for quite some time now. How do you think these kingdoms got built? Would it be hypocritical to be disgusted by that despite us humans also engaging in the same practice? Kinda. Still, that didn't make the thought of it any less horrifying. I mean, imagine stumbling across a path that leads into their world, then the next thing you know, you've become a slave of theirs. It doesn't sound like an ideal way to spend the remainder of one's natural life. That's why me and Carl's were dependent on the mission going well. I don't know which would be worse, being a slave or getting killed by them. Either way, we just had to give things our all. Carl and I went into separate groups. He was part of the one who was tasked with trying to poison the royals in their rooms. I was part of the ones whose job was poisoning the food. I won't lie, not having Carl there did make me pretty nervous. Prior to us heading out, he gave me some words of advice. Pete, don't fuck up. Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. No problem. Carl's group left first, with mine leaving shortly later. In order to reach our destinations, we'd have to approach the tower from different angles. There was a hell of a lot of crouching and waiting for some guard Pegasus to pass. The tensest part were when some ghosts or harpies were nearby, not just for the fact that they'd rip us apart, it was also because their screaming would alert any nearby guards. These harpies were even more hideous up close. They do have some intelligence, as we heard some speak. Their voices sound very parrot like, but more effeminate. They were also some sadistic bitches. Some talked about how they'd hunt humans for sport. Others laughed about torturing people to death. These bitches were crazy. I'd be damned if I was going to become their plaything. The idea of getting feasted on by them like I was a mouse being played with by a cat gives me the heebie jeebies. Something else that also raised the stakes was in regards to the ghosts. As it turned out, they had a habit of possessing people, humans only. Most of the other creatures were too strong to be taken over. That is, except under special circumstances. I already knew the key not to getting possessed was to maintain composure around them. Unfortunately, with the harpies nearby, doing so was virtually impossible. We ended up getting spotted by some as we were waiting for some ghosts to leave our vicinity. I thought we were up the creek without a paddle. Fortunately, the one leading our group thought fast. He pushed the member nearest to him towards the ghost and harpies, then told us to run like hell. By this point, the harpies were already screeching, which alerted the Pegasus. These fuckers were fast. Several of them flew down to the ground, landing on several members of our group. Seeing them cave in people's skull with their hooves was stomach churning, to say the least. Now, luckily, my town's past experiences ended up helping me. Whenever I thought one of the faster monsters were nearby, I'd know to jump back at the slightest blur or wind on my face. That's what I did there. One nearly crushed me, but I managed to get out of the way in time, after which I stabbed it with my poison-coated lance. It didn't even puncture that deep, but the poison's effects were horrifying to watch. Blood clotting wasn't the only effect of it, as it turns out. It basically ate through them from the inside. In a couple of short seconds, I could already see their ribs and skull. The possibility of that stuff getting into me was a shuddering thought. The Pegasus didn't scream or let out any noise of distress. Maybe it couldn't, however, I could see the pain in their eyes. I almost felt for it. Almost. That isn't to say I enjoyed seeing them suffer. It's more that they tried to kill me. That can put a damper on having sympathy. The members left of my group managed to kill their assaulters as well. The smell was nearly fainting inducing. All we could do was keep moving forward as the harpies were feeding on the corpses of those left behind. Now we were left with no choice but to find another route. We may have gotten away from the harpies and ghosts, but they were just the tip of the fucked up iceberg. The area we came across next was a river. It just so happened that this led to another way to the tower, which we could see on the other side. The problem was, we weren't sure how to cross it. There was no way we could swim all the way across, not to mention whatever horrors were lurking in it. I thought we were stuck until we spotted some large logs floating around in the current. That gave us an idea. A large number of them floated by, and we leapt at them. I held on to mine tightly. Nobody dared make any noise out of fear of what it might attract. Unfortunately, that didn't keep us out of harm's way. The person holding the log right next to me let out a yell. "Are you trying to get us killed?" I hissed nervously. "I thought I felt something trying to grab my foot," he told us. I was about to chew him out for scaring us when something pulled him into the water. Our eyes grew wide seeing this. We began kicking like hell, trying to get to the shore quicker. Our efforts were in vain. I cursed as something wrapped around my leg and yanked me down. Under the water, I could see something big with many glowing yellow eyes that reminded me of headlights. I knew right away that looking into them was a bad idea, but it was too late. A flash washed over me, and I found myself in a dark void. I wasn't alone. Two people were in front of me who I haven't seen in a while. It was my mom and dad. "Peter," my mom smiled, hugging me. "It's been so long." I was too stunned to respond. My first instinct was to assume that this was some kind of hallucination. My mom's hug challenged this notion. It felt exactly like her. I didn't have a clue what was going on. Eventually, I did manage to find my voice. "What is this place?" I asked. "Where are we?" "The being you saw is benevolent," my dad explained. "It is able to communicate across different planes and has taken pity on us. It wants to help reunite us." "How?" "All you have to do is pledge your loyalty to it." Now my heartbeat quickened. My danger meter was slowly inching its way from zero. "What do you mean?" I asked. "All you have to do is close your eyes and accept its embrace," my mom responded. "If you do, you'll be taken to us and we'll be free." It was so tempting, and that's exactly why I refused to do it. Too good to be true or words of wisdom in most cases, and this was one of them. "I can't," I said, causing my parents' warm smiles to fade. "Why aren't you listening?" my dad asked, sounding angry. "We can be together again. I have some friends who need me. I'm sorry." My mom spoke next in a tone that conveyed impatience and irritation. "Don't you care about us, Pete? Your dad and I gave so much for you, and you won't even do this for us?" That was what broke the illusion for me. I shoved her back, making her yell out in surprise. They stared at me wide eyed. "No," I shouted, "you aren't them. You are fakes." "We're trying to help you," my dad said, stepping closer. Without warning, I screamed and shoved the tip of my lance into its chest. My mom shrieked, and I did the same to her. Even though I knew they weren't real, that didn't make it any less horrifying to go through. I heard their anguished cries while watching their faces melt right in front of me. Seeing this filled me with grief and horror. All I could do was scream at the top of my lungs. Then I saw cracks beginning to form in the void. Soon another flash washed over me. With a start, realization came over me that I was back in the water. Glancing down showed me through the blurry water that I had struck my lance into something. It was in the eye of the monster. When this clicked in my mind, it took great restraint to keep myself from yelling in fear, thus accidentally sucking in water. I stomped on the tendril holding my foot, causing it to finally let go. Then I swam up and luckily managed to find another log. A glance around told me only about half of us were now left. Part of me wonders what they saw. Another part tells me that's better left unanswered. Thankfully, we managed to make it the rest of the way without any more trouble. We collapsed onto the land, breathing hard. I could hear some people sobbing. I felt a deep pain in my chest, one only something specific can alleviate. I've added that thing in the water to my mental list of scary shit I fucking despise. To me, few things are crueler than weaponizing guilt and using it to control someone. We collected ourselves after our short break and continued. We reached the base of the mountain. My fingers tightened around my weapon's handle, and I grew cautious and fearful of the dangers waiting for us at the tower.